Welcome to the live stream of the podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in on this beautiful Saturday morning. Today, we are joined by Jacqui Painter, candidate for City Council in Brooklyn's 38th District. We're going to talk about Jacqui. We're going to talk about why Jacqui is running and what issues she would like to take on should she become our next council member. But before we get started, I would like to remind you to please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you can find us over at www.sunsetyoutube.com. Also, please feel free to post your comments or questions in the live chat. Jacqui, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I feel like you're a local celebrity of ours.
Thank you. That's nice of you to say. I don't feel like a celebrity, but that's cool. Thank you. So let's jump right in, right? You have been very active in the community for a very long time, and I see you out there at the different marches, different events, advocating for the community. For those who are not maybe too familiar with you, tell us how long you've been in the district.
Yeah, so I actually grew up here in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and I have been living here. My family has lived here, and I grew up here on the waterfront, on our beautiful waterfront district, which really made me into the activist that I am today. I started out as a climate activist. I still am a climate activist, but at a very early age, realizing that we're going to need to protect our waterfront communities ASAP, or else we're going to be in trouble. And we saw that in Hurricane Sandy. And I hope to protect the community and district that raised me.
Now, during all that work advocating for the community, when do you decide you want to run, or what motivated you as the next step in your journey as an activist?
Yeah. What motivated me was just witnessing all the injustices happening around our district. When I went away to college for a while. I went to the University of Colorado to study environmental design, and as I was away, it was after Sandy, and nothing. I kept seeing nothing really get fixed. Everything was getting worse. We have, as I said, climate change is no longer knocking at our back door, as people used to say. It's here. It's in the house. We have toxic soil. We have people being displaced everywhere. We have people without gas and heat. My mother, she moved out of Red Hook, and she couldn't actually come back because of gentrification after Sandy. So that's something that really means a lot to me, and I hope that never has to happen to anyone else. And I couldn't take it anymore. I'm very much raised on the fact of, if you don't like something, then get up and do something about it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting up and I'm doing something about it. I'm a fierce fighter, and I want to fight for us.
Gentrification, right? That's like a topic that keeps coming up over and over again. And every candidate that's been on the podcast, it's like you can't talk about the district as a whole, Red Hook, Sunset Park, without the topic of gentrification coming up. And it's a very complex issue because there are people who seem to be okay with it, who think that maybe because they're a homeowner, they somehow feel that they're getting finally a return on their investment. They bought a home here years ago, and now home prices are ridiculous. I've heard stories where I heard one neighbor say, he rents. He says, I make about $130 a year. My wife makes around the same, and we still can't afford to buy a house anywhere in Red Hook or Sunset Park. And there's others who say, well, look, we're getting all these nice things. We're getting Industry City, where there's now a place to go and hang out, and we've got all these different restaurants and bars. But regular folks in the community can't really afford to go to places like that. So is there anything that can be done at the city council level to help maybe slow down gentrification, or to how do we watch these aggressive developers? How do we keep an eye on them so that the development is fair and doesn't hurt longtime residents who rent and get priced out?
Yeah. So right now we're at an extremely pivotal moment in our city. We are seeing ourselves through a crisis right now that, to me, is very similar and reminds me a lot to another crisis I lived through, Hurricane Sandy, right? After Hurricane Sandy happened, what I like to call, or what is the term, disaster capitalism happened throughout our district, right? So that means that developers profit off of this disaster by buying build cheaper buildings and housing and develop it and sell it for more. That happened to us after Sandy in a large scale way throughout our district. And I don't want it to happen again after the coronavirus pandemic. All my life growing up here, I have seen the community change so much. It's like you walk down any of our streets and you're bound to see things that you never thought you would see ever in Red Hook and in Sunset Park. And people are being displaced for good, like you said, and people aren't able to buy property. A lot of rezoning processes that we see being proposed are favoring these developments and not the people. We're seeing right now that we're in a extreme housing crisis. So we're going to need to act. The city council is going to need to act. They are going to need to invest and implement in tenant protection laws, and also community decision making. You know what I mean? We've seen a lot of community power recently, with Industry City rezoning proposal, with a lot of other rezoning proposals actually throughout the borough and throughout the city. But we need to keep doing those. We need to make sure that we hold our leaders and community boards accountable to present racial impact studies, right? To present environmental impact studies. And like I said, we need tenant protections, and that's something that's done a lot of times at the state level, but the city council itself can put massive pressure on our state legislators to cancel rent, to rent stabilize, to all of these tenant protections that we're not really advocating for as fiercely as we should be right now. And now's the time, like I said.
Yeah, we kind of knew that all these inequities existed, and the pandemic just kind of put them in our faces 10 times more, right? With people losing their jobs. I know people who have not worked since March. It is extremely scary for some of our neighbors because they just can't afford the rent. They just can't pay it. You have to choose between paying rent or eating that day. It's such a dire situation to be in, and it almost feels like it falls on deaf ears, right? And we have a lot of neighbors who didn't qualify for the stimulus, the COVID stimulus, and so I don't know. Is there something within the council, the city council, that can also help or advocate for those neighbors of ours that did not qualify for stimulus money?
Yeah. So throughout this whole pandemic, I myself have been working with mutual aid. I started the Red Hook Relief Group, which is Red Hook's mutual aid. And we have been seeing firsthand all of these neighbors who are without jobs, are hungry, are in danger of losing their homes and their apartments. And it's devastating. Families are going hungry in our backyard, right? The city has absolutely failed us in this respect. Absolutely. We have seen all of these systems crumble during this pandemic, and we have seen systems in place that the city had fail. Food systems that we thought we had, housing systems, wage systems, all of these systems have been failing because we have never really put investments in them. We have never put time, we've never put money in them, and I think that we're seeing this now. The city council can 100% pass actual legislation to help people get food for food subsidiaries, for housing subsidiaries, for all of these things that would help people without work right now. The city's priorities are not the people, and that's very unfortunate. And we're seeing that now. We're seeing that the city's priorities are developers and corporations that they're bailing out, and not the people. We need to bail out our people right now, period. I've seen a lot myself of examples too where it's just inhumane. There are neighbors throughout our district, for example, without gas, right? Without cooking gas in Red Hook and in Sunset Park. The city's response to that is to give them food vouchers. Now, these food vouchers have a special clause on them where if you spend your food vouchers or if you get a certain number, usually it takes away from your either SNAP benefits or EBT or whatever you have. Usually it's like a give and take, right? That's crazy.
Wow. That's not help. That's not help.
No, it's not help at all. So it's like, wow. Okay, great. I get a food voucher for a hot meal, but yet I can't go to the grocery store for as much money as I normally would have. It's absolutely insane to me.
Insane. Borderline criminal. I mean, you're taking
absolutely.
It's like digging a hole to cover an existing hole. I mean, it's mind-boggling that's how they think. But yeah, in one sense, we are lucky to have advocates like yourself, who, if it wasn't for this type of work where you're offering mutual aid, where you're offering a place where our neighbors can go and get food and get assistance, they'd have nowhere else to turn. So sometimes these dire situations bring out the best in people, and our community is lucky to have people stepping up like yourself to help out. And that's something that, regardless, I guess, of how this election turns out, you're one of the leaders of this community that has been there for the people. And for that, I want to say thank you for stepping up. It's really important that we do this, right? I think it's our responsibility, if we are in a place where we can help people, that we step up and do it. And thank you, Jacqui. That's important work.
Thanks.
Now, another issue, and this has existed way before the pandemic as well, the relationship between the community and our local police precincts. Historically, there's always been conflict where the police, I think, over-police the community. And we can go back to all the different cases, and there's just so many to list throughout the years. But we just had a coup attempt not so long ago, right? A week ago. And this kind of ties in to policing, because there's a certain segment of folks out there who want to equate the Black Lives Matter movement with what happened on Wednesday. And I think that's just a false equivalent. But the way police our communities ties into what we saw. We saw a group of people trying to overthrow a democratic process. and basically they walked in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really tough for people of color and for people in our communities to see that, because when you see that, you're like, man, you know, we are viewed as a community as not important, right? And there's been a movement for a long time about defund the police or defund the NYPD. What comes to mind when you hear something like defund the police?
Yeah. So this is an issue that is very important to me, extremely important to me, and always has been. I have been working with Black Lives Matter since Eric Gardner, right? I ran out into the streets since then. And unfortunately, we're still in the streets now. What happened on Wednesday was an utter showing of white supremacy. We saw the police that have been terrorizing our communities here in District 38 and in our city forever. We have police following neighbors. We have police, you know, I can walk outside right now and walk down Columbia Street and see 6 cop cars sitting there. And I can go to Sunset Park and go to every corner of the park and see a cop car sitting there. I mean, it's just wild because we saw this group of domestic terrorism, like we're just going to call it what it is, walk into the Capitol and try to undermine our democracy. We are hearing horrible reports right now from the FBI of things that they were planning on doing, which are just criminal acts, whether they enacted them or not. They are criminal acts that were meant to be happening when they got in that Capitol. Plus, they did commit crimes. They did loot. They did break in to a government building. And, you know, what was it? 69 people got arrested as of yesterday. I read this. 69 people got arrested. And there was more than 400 people that have gotten arrested at the George Floyd protest alone. And I was at that protest at Barclays, the first one. You know, I was at a lot of them throughout the summer. I was at Occupy City Hall. I was a lot. And the cops would follow us. They were aggressive. They would beat people up. As we saw this summer, you know, the NYPD was unlawfully beating up peaceful protesters, arresting us, spraying us with pepper spray. You know, I actually, you know, I was in a group that got roughed up by the police during that first protest. And, you know, we see right now that Tish James is actually acting on it and is filing a lawsuit against the NYPD, which shows you that there is evidence. I mean, she has all these videos of protesters getting beaten up. Our city is putting more money into the police than into things that we need: schools, education, our essential workers, our social programs. I am a fan. I am very pro defunding the police. I think that we need to defund them by half, which is $3 billion, because we now more than ever need to invest in our communities, especially after the events on Wednesday. I hope that a lot of people see this. You know, a lot of people are saying, or used to say maybe, that the term defund police was a scary term, right? Well, that means that we're going to get away all the police officers. We're going to get rid of them. We need a police force. That's not what defund the police means. Defund the police means take money from this bloated budget and put it into community programs, put it into social workers, you know, put it into things that can help our communities. The safest communities are the communities without actually the most police. And we see this throughout the city and throughout the country. Because these communities have the most available, ready resources for them, right? Unfortunately, actually, we saw in the news just the other day, right, that someone's family called 911 and asked for help because they were having a mental health crisis. The police showed up and ended up shooting the individual that was being called for. This is something that should never happen. And if we invest in more social workers, in different systems to respond to these things, then we will see different outcomes. We need to expand. That's something that the city council can do to get a little bit more specific. Is we need to make sure that we expand the cure violence programs. We need to expand other community-based violence interrupters. We need to create teams of crisis responders to actually handle mental health crises. We need to handle different drug overdoses, right? Domestic disputes and other emergencies that should be handled by someone who is a specialist and not the police.
Yeah, definitely. It feels that the way the police react to these type of situations, we can clearly see that they're not trained to handle these type of scenarios at all.
No.
Because you would expect them to de-escalate a situation, to kind of find a way to kind of bring things down if they're getting pretty intense. And it's something that historically has happened a lot in our community. I mean, I remember, I was born and raised in Sunset Park, and if something ever happened outside our house, you never call the police, never, because calling the police would actually make it worse, right? So it was like a thing is like, we don't call the cops, we just don't, because it makes the situation that much more dangerous. But I agree, there should be other types of task forces that handle people who are having maybe a mental breakdown or a really stressful situation, that can come in and are experts, maybe sociologists, psychologists, or someone with that type of study or academic background that can help de-escalate these situations. And like, for example, with the Black Lives Matter protests, there were times where in some of the protests, the police are kind of instigating, like trying to get a reaction out of people, and it's like, that's not your job. That's not what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean,
it's frustrating. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, no, sorry. We saw the police, an NYPD officer just last week take out his gun. And not only that, but he didn't have a mask on. So this group of protesters that you see in the video just standing there with their hands up, chanting, no weapons, like the disparity between what we saw last week here in New York City, where a cop pulled out his gun, versus in DC, where these people were armed to the T. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, that's instigation. That's it.
Yeah, and we're getting comments from viewers, and Teresa saying that she's had academy training and it needs so much more. And I think if you're going to be an officer of the law, where you're going to uphold the laws, much more than 6 months of training. I mean, lawyers go through so much schooling to understand and interpret laws, and the people that are out in the street who are there to uphold these laws get 6 months of training, and no training, it seems like, or zero training on de-escalating situations. It's unfortunate. It's scary. I personally can tell you that I don't feel safe whenever I see police out on my block, or where I just don't feel safe. I don't like. I feel like, at any point, if there's any interaction with the police, that it can always go wrong. And my biggest fear as a parent is when I'm with my kids, or if we're driving somewhere and we get pulled over, Like, there's going to be a time in my life where my kids are small, but there's going to be a time in my life where I am going to have the talk with my
Mhm.
sons. And it's not the talk that we're used to or that everyone talks about and every parent fears. It's a talk about how they're going to have to conduct themselves
Mhm.
around the police,
Mhm.
because they're one day when they grow up and they become young men,
Yeah.
because they're going to be viewed, unfortunately, different. And
Mhm.
it's a thing that I think about all the time as I see them getting bigger and bigger.
Mhm.
But with all these different issues that we touched on, is there a specific issue that you think is is the most important, if we can rank it, that you would like to specifically tackle should you be fortunate enough to be our representative at the city council, that you're like, when I take office,
Mhm.
this is what I need to address the first day that I walk into my office? Is there anything that you can pick out?
Yeah, I mean, so I wouldn't say that there is just one. um, I think that, our conversation so far, it's so clear that there are so many things that are just not being given attention right now. Um, I would say that coming out of this whole pandemic, we need to make sure that our city is focused on a fair and just recovery for all New Yorkers and not corporations or developers, right? And a big part of that is making sure that we invest and fight for our housing, which includes NYCHA, which District 38, as you know, has the largest NYCHA development in Brooklyn, and other New Yorkers for housing protections and services. NYCHA is just such a beast that the city government just neglects, and it's never been fully funded. And we need to have fighters in the city council that don't give up and make sure that these issues are kept being talked about, right? I think that we mentioned this before. Um, we need to make sure that we are having people that are fighting for NYCHA tenants that live in horrible conditions, right? And other tenants throughout our district who are losing gas and are losing heat. I mean, this is something that is happening to small buildings in our district, and then also to giant NYCHA buildings, right? This is something that is a human right. Housing is a human right, and having heat in your house in the middle of winter is a human right. There are people throughout our district that are facing these issues and facing evictions, which is also very inhumane right now in this crisis, and illegal. So we need to pass rent relief protections ASAP. Um, we need to make sure that our district is protected from all of these things. Especially, we're a big district of essential workers, right? We owe our essential workers right now everything, because they have been keeping the city alive throughout this pandemic. And we essential workers are a diverse working force in the city, right? They are hospital workers, healthcare workers, construction workers, food service industry workers. And our district has a lot of people there. Industrial workers. Oh my gosh, we have such a big industrial worker population here. And the fact that the city isn't investing in them, and a lot of them are facing these horrible housing injustices, and it's just it's just crazy to me. And
Yeah, essential workers are the heart of our
mhm,
city.
mhm,
They keep
mhm,
our city running, and it's just unfair to see how they lose out on a lot of
yeah,
things that I think they have a right to. Even with this very slow rollout of this COVID vaccine,
Yeah.
where I think that essential workers, everyone you just mentioned, people who
Mhm.
work in the supermarkets, who are
Mhm.
there so that we can go and get our food, deserve to be in the front of that line.
Mhm.
We shouldn't have to be competing with each other
Mhm.
for a vaccine.
Mhm.
And I think that they
Mhm.
should be at the front,
Mhm.
getting vaccinated, because without them, we just don't have a city. We might as well just
No,
close
absolutely.
down.
Absolutely.
Now,
Mhm.
no, I was going to say another frustration, I guess that the constituents have
Mhm.
is accessibility, right, to our local elected officials, where there's a question in the live chat, and this is, I guess, kind of a criticism to, and we'll post it. It says, "Will you be available to the community, or will you disappear like other council members?" How do we hold our elected officials accountable so that we can
Mhm.
reach them, we can be there? I think people feel a disconnect sometimes with
Mhm.
our local elected officials. Will you try to be someone who's accessible to the community, when that
Mhm.
they can reach out to you whenever there's something that they need, or something that they want advocacy for at
Yeah.
the council level?
Yeah. Well, thank you for your question and concern, Teresa. I think it was Teresa, right?
Mm-hmm, Teresa.
Um, and yes, you can definitely hold me 1,000,000% accountable for being there for the people. I think that we're at a very exciting time right now where we see just how easy it is to be connected, right? Um, in this time where nobody could go outside, we were able to still all be connected through things like this, like what you're watching on right now, social media, and Zoom. So it's like no matter what happens in the world, we should still be working for the people, and we should still be holding regular town halls, for example. Um, I think that my kind of vision for the city council office is actually something I find very beautiful and exciting, where it's a place where people can come in and organize. I want to make sure that we have a office that people feel comfortable walking in and out of, maybe using the conference room if they need it, if there's a conference room, um, and coming in with their community, talking about their issues and organizing. Like let's do this together. I'm raised on an organizing background. I'm raised in a community that has always fought for themselves. I mean, Red Hook is such a resilient community, um, obviously, as well as the rest of our district. And I'm raised on that, and I'm not going to lose that. I want to sit down and have office hours and talk with our district. And our district is so large and diverse that I think a goal would be to have two kind of home bases, since we have this curve in our district of Red Hook and Sunset Park. I think that we need to have two physical places where people can come in and express their concerns and talk to a real person. You know what I mean? Where
So
right
you would
now,
have two offices?
yeah, I mean, if it would if it works out, that would ideally be the goal, right? Is to have two physical spaces where people can come in, whether it's like a satellite office or a physical, or I'm not really sure how that would work out in the budget, but that is what I think that our district definitely needs. It's hard for people, especially some of our immobile people and our seniors. It's very hard for them to come to take the bus. I mean, we're already, both of us don't have the greatest transportation, right? Red Hook and Sunset Park. So how are we supposed to how are people here supposed to get there? How are people there supposed to get here? I think that we need to make that a lot easier and a lot more transparent for people. I think that we're at a place, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent, but this is really important. I think that we're at a very interesting place in our government as well, that our government isn't being as transparent as possible, right? We have a huge thing. Ranked choice voting is new. We have all this talk about the Brooklyn Democratic Party and county committee. Well, where are the people educating the people? where are our legislators educating everyone on these issues? Like, where is the advocacy? Where is the transparency? We need to make sure that these walls that are put up in our government are knocked down completely, so that everyone knows what's going on, everyone knows how things work. It's better for our communities to be informed, right? It's better for everyone. It's better for the legislators. It's better for the people. Secrets don't do anyone any good. So I think that we need to be transparent in that way as well. And I'm very committed as well to my staff being diverse from everywhere in our district, right? Language access. Oh my gosh, we could go on for another hour about language access, but that's something that really needs to be fixed. And like, oh my God, this is New York City. So there's absolutely no excuse for anywhere in the government to not have language access, right? I mean, we can find someone who speaks that language. It's New York City. So definitely, I think that I want to be in office where anyone has an issue at all, they can either call, they can come in, and they know where to go. They know who to call. They know that their issue is being heard.
Yeah, transparency is something very vital and very important, so that our elected officials have a good, working, healthy relationship with the community. And I think something like having two offices is actually an idea that would bridge that, right? Would bridge that feeling of disconnect, where people from Red Hook,
yeah,
historically would have to travel to Sunset Park. And although we're very close, right? I mean, you're right next door to each other.
Yeah.
The commute is like a little complex if you have to do it via public transportation. What should be a 10-minute, 15-minute commute turns out to be 30 minutes, 45 minutes, just because you might have to take the bus to the subway and then, subway into Sunset, and it's a little complex. But I think that would be something that should definitely be considered, to satellite offices, where people can just walk to the office instead of having to commute 30, 45 minutes to the next neighborhood over to get services from the office. Now, you said you grew up in Red Hook, and you've been there all your life. If there was, in a few words, you could describe the experience of growing up in Brooklyn, growing up in Red Hook, something that you can tell us a little bit about growing up, and why growing up in Red Hook was so great, so vital to forming the person that you are today. What could you tell us about that childhood growing up in Red Hook?
Yeah. I think that growing up in Brooklyn and, New York City, but especially Brooklyn, is such a unique and special experience. I don't think there's anything like it in the world. And growing up in Red Hook made me who I am today. Red Hook and Sunset Park has a very similar feeling. It's a very much small town feeling within this huge city, right? It's somewhere where you know your neighbors. You go out and you play as a kid, and you come back. You're kind of like every child, I think, in Brooklyn is kind of let out to go play, and then they come back at like night or whatever, and for dinner, and it's a beautiful thing. Here in Red Hook, I was so fortunate to grow up so close to the environment. I grew up on these, bounced around on the rocks at at the piers, and before there was IKEA, there was just a bunch of space that you could break into and get in trouble as a little kid and bounce around on the rocks of the water. And it's something that brought me closer to the issues that I care about, right? I was raised by such a strong community, and to see that be so forgotten about, and to grow into understanding that our district is almost an afterthought, in my opinion, to the government. And I can't let this happen. I cannot stand by and let this happen. Our district is so beautiful. The people and the community is so special that we can't let anyone take it away. And it's finally time that we get the recognition that we deserve. So, yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, definitely. Those I could definitely relate growing up in Sunset Park, and they're both waterfront neighborhoods, and the experiences are very similar. Yeah, and there is that small town feeling. And in fact, this district is larger than the average small town across the entire country. So it's pretty interesting. You're exposed to so many different experiences, different people. I would not change me growing up in this neighborhood for anything in the world. It's just such a rich experience, not rich in money, right? Because we weren't rich growing up, but rich in the people you were with and the experiences you had. It was a very rich upbringing. Now, we're getting a couple of questions from people in the live chat, and I guess people are concerned with what we've seen with this pandemic, where children don't have access to Wi-Fi because they're learning remotely. They don't have access to devices, and that's a situation that, again, has been brought to light because of this pandemic. So I'll post it really quickly here. And it says about, I guess they want to know about experience organizing, right? And if you have any experience organizing or organizing to help people address things like this, grassroots organizing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And that's Maria Elena Garcia in the live chat.
Yeah, well, thank you, Maria, for your question. I have been a grassroots organizer for my entire life, for my entire professional career as well. For the past 4 years, I have been working as a healthcare organizer with Medicare and Medicaid, and I've been working at different senior centers, and especially at the Red Hook Senior Center right here. And I have seen a lot of access issues actually throughout these 4 years, and not just in the pandemic. First of all, we need to really understand that education is key, right? I'm a strong advocate for education. My mother is a teacher, and that in itself is essential workers that also need help and investment. But we need to make sure that our city has Wi-Fi access, right? And our district is one that doesn't, in all parts, have Wi-Fi access. There are groups like here in Red Hook, we have Red Hook Initiative, who are providing some Wi-Fi services. But where's the city? Why is it up to these nonprofits to provide Wi-Fi accessibility and not the city? This is now an essential, right? Wi-Fi, we've seen, is an essential for everyone. And we have seen many cases where people are unable to come to their school Zoom or to their meeting Zoom or whatever it is because of Wi-Fi access. Us also being a waterfront community, I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but we do have a lot of outages, more than other folks in Brooklyn who are more in the center and more connected. We need to address these issues, and we need to make sure that our schools have the funding allocated to provide the instruments, the iPads, the instruments meaning like the technology, the iPads, whether it's a laptop, iPad, whatever it is that your kid needs to go to school, we need to make sure that our schools are actually getting city money to do this, because it's now part of school. Like, it's now part of public school, private school, charter school, whatever kind of school you go to, you are learning online. And we need to make sure that our students are equipped with the technology, the PPE, everything to do with the pandemic. And this is the safest way to go through it, obviously, for students online. So we need to make sure that we give them the tools. And I have experience organizing, like I said, my whole life. I have been organizing with Red Hook Relief right now. I've been organizing in healthcare, and I plan on making sure that internet access is a priority, especially for students.
Yeah, and access to Wi-Fi, access to devices, again,
Mm-hmm.
becomes an issue of how the city is allocating funds,
Mm-hmm.
right? We spoke a little bit ago about the police and how much funding they get.
Mm-hmm.
And the numbers are just incredible, where they get about $6 billion a year, which is more than what schools get, what hospitals get, what
Mm-hmm.
mental health services get
Mm-hmm.
combined.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an extreme injustice. And I think that that's where the city council can step in and advocate as far as budgeting is concerned, because it makes no sense that in the richest country, I'm sorry, in
Mm-hmm.
the richest city in the world, one of the richest cities in the world, children do not have basic resources like devices, like Wi Fi to learn. It's incredible. It's borderline criminal
Mm-hmm.
that children do not. There's children that to this day, and we're January, school started in September, still do not have devices
Yeah.
in this district.
Yeah.
It's incredible, and I think that the mayor and a lot of other people around him kind of miss this opportunity to prove that they are
Mm-hmm.
truly that they truly care about the city, about our children, about our communities.
Yeah.
So the next city council member of this district is going to have a lot of work on their hands,
Yeah.
and all eyes are going to be on the new council member because of that, because of our waterfront. Everyone wants access to this waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to develop on this waterfront,
Mm-hmm.
and there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's
Mm-hmm.
going to be a lot of pressure on our new council member to make the right decisions, to be the right person to advocate for the community. And these are a lot of intense, difficult, complex issues. And I almost don't envy whoever wins, right? Because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. Now, there's a lot of people running. We have
Mm-hmm.
a full race, um, with a lot of people with diverse experiences. If you weren't running, um, and you weren't even considering running or whatever, who of the other candidates would Jacqui vote for if Jacqui wasn't running?
So this is a good question.
Don't mean to
First
put you on the spot here.
off, first off, I just want to say that I hope everybody else sees this too. We are so lucky as a district that we have all these amazing people running for office and people who want to represent our district. I think it's a true testament to our neighborhoods, our communities, that we are so popular. You know what I mean? I'm very. It makes me even prouder to be a candidate in this race and to be a resident of this district. That so many people believe in it and want to fight for it. Um, I've worked with many of the other candidates, and I think that there's a diverse group of people. I don't know if I can pick just one, but what I can tell you is that we have ranked choice voting this year, right? So actually, people can choose several candidates. It's going to be up to 5, and you can rank your choices. So, if you want to vote for me number 1, then you can put someone else number 2, and number 3, and number 4. And I hope that y'all will vote number 1 for me. I'll be your number 1 pick. But yeah, I mean, I can't just pick one. Sorry, Rob. I know I cheated you out of an answer, but
Now, if people want to get to know more about your campaign, or they want to follow you on social media, what's the best way to learn more about your campaign if people want to reach out to you directly? How can they do that?
Yeah. So I'd love for everyone to go to my website. It's www.painterforcouncil.com. You can go on the website. You can sign up for emails. I hope that people will sign up for emails. There's an email that you yourself can email. And please, please, please tell me any issues or questions that you have. I'd love to speak more about this. Everything that we talked about so far, I have a lot more to say. I know that I'm probably talking too much. But I have a lot more to say. You can also go to my social medias. I have a Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I have a TikTok. I couldn't even remember the name. I have a TikTok. I have everything. So please reach out to me and ask me any questions and talk to me. I'd love to talk more.
Great. Jacqui, thank you so much. I think this was very interesting. I think the viewers and listeners got an opportunity to learn more about you and the issues that you want to take on. Thank you for taking the time to be here on a Saturday morning. And we look forward to seeing how the race plays out, and we'll have you on if you come back as we get closer to the election.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to be on. Thank you so much, Robin. Again, this is very cool. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very glad that we got to talk.
Thank you very much. Take care, Jacqui. Be well.
You too. Be well, everyone.